I know we're live, you guys, but the marketing in me needs to get a picture for social of all of us. So all the attendees, smile where you are, but the panelists, smile where you are. I'm going to do a screenshot really quick, okay? 1, 2, 3. Great.
Awesome.
At least you warned. I've seen so many of them where somebody just did it in the middle of a meeting. There's somebody doing it.
Right, doing one of these.
Yeah. And those were probably the best lookaways. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen, and probably all the attendees as well, on Facebook or any social platform, the people who take, they have this view, but then everything beyond, they'll take a picture of their kids are running around, and it's just insane.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
Here's another bucket coming in.
Yeah. I'm surprised Zoom has not done the feature where you can pick like a opening song to play where everybody logs on. Maybe I'll
hey man, you're the tech guy. Come on.
Yes.
I'm gonna email the president of the Zoom as soon as we get off of this and pitch my idea.
No. Yeah. Well, I've seen somebody post in like that introduction screen when you're dialing up and the host has some other screen. They've written a little bit. It says, how do you like our music, elevator music? Oh yeah, we don't have any, but
Yeah. That's all. We could do a intro song and a play down song when somebody starts talking too long. You start playing the music like you would at the Grammys or something.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, I have a tendency to go over my time limit, so I would have that song playing all the time. And we'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll get going here. We've got a nice crowd coming in. Uh-huh. All right, well, let's go ahead, and there'll be obviously people that are going to populate in, and the good news is that people that come in later won't have to listen to me in my introduction. But welcome everybody to this webinar hosted by SEDC, Community Marketing and Post-COVID-19 Era. We appreciate everybody's support of SEDC in general, and particularly these digital platforms. These webinars have had great attendance, and we have a few of them that we're probably going to be doing in the future. So this particular session is the first of 2 sessions. There'll be a second community marketing session with another set of panelists that will be held sometime in September. And I have no doubt that those will be a great seminar and webinar, just like this one's going to be. So to get started, first to say, I sure hope that you and yours have been safe and healthy during the last 4 months of this unprecedented craziness, and hope that and pray that going forward things are safe and healthy for everybody as well. Certainly, we've all learned that flexibility is the key. And in your work as an economic development professional, This is requiring flexibility, extraordinary flexibility on what you're doing with regards to helping your community grow and develop and thrive. And certainly there's new things put on your plate. There's other things that you're having to edit in your plan of attack to help your community as well. So, this seminar is set up to present ideas for adjustments, give you some ideas as well as present some best practices that are out there, and think that that's going to hopefully give you some ideas, 1, 2, or 3, to be able to take with you and help you in your endeavors for your respective communities. I'd also note that in the discussions that we've had with our panelists, there's a great sensitivity to economic development budgets that have been and will be continue to be adversely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis and the financial activities that are impacted as well. And so we understand that, and know the panelists will be bringing to you some ideas that, yes, might cost some money, but some ways to be able to do some other things that maybe can save you some thoughts and activities there. So these presenters have all volunteered their time and energies, and we at SEDC say thank you up front to our folks to step in and help us and present some ideas to you. As far as our format outline, I'm going to go around and do just a quick introduction to everybody. Then they're going to come on and visit a little bit with their self-introductions, as well as to give some preliminary comments as to what they've been doing with their clients over the last 4 months. So I'm going to pull up first Sarah Macaluso, who is the Economic Development and Community Marketing Specialist for Red Sage Communications. Red Sage is a full-service creative marketing and communications agency with offices in Decatur and Huntsville, Alabama. They were founded in 2006, and their client base spans 13 states across the Southeast. They provide strategic, results-oriented marketing solutions for economic developers, communities, corporations, and small businesses. So Sarah, come on up and introduce yourself and give us a quick introduction, and also talk a little bit about what you've been up to the last 4 months.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for the introduction, Pete. Thank you to the panelists for being here today, as well as all the attendees. I'm personally super excited to be on this call. It's probably my 1000th, just like many of you, webinar, but we hope that today is going to be really valuable for everyone. As Pete mentioned, I specifically work with many of our economic development and community marketing clients, and the landscape has shifted. We've had to, just since COVID has come into play and on the landscape. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about some of the strategies that we've not only taken from an emerging trend, but really to be kind of more a standard or normal trend through this time. My experience really stems at Red Sage from the development, the strategic development, and then management and execution of our economic development and community marketing campaigns. That could include website development, workforce or industrial recruitment campaigns, print pieces for retail guides. So it spans, it's pretty wide reaching. But I'm excited to be here today and to talk to you all a little bit about some of the trends that we've learned just over the last couple months.
Awesome. Chris, I'm going to bring you up next. Chris Knight is the co-founder and chief commercial officer for Wavteq. Wavteq is the foreign direct investment consultancy that was founded in 2010. They work with economic development and investment promotion agencies all over the world to assist them in attracting foreign investment. They do this through lead generation strategies, investment promotion, and value proposition development. Chris?
Hey, thanks for the introduction, and thanks for having me today. So, I've been doing quite a lot of these all over the world, trying to listen to what different people are doing. Economic development, is really been quite entrepreneurial during this, and I guess we have to as a business, as Pete said. So we typically do lead generation. As you can imagine, that is decimated. Like, companies aren't investing overseas, so we had to reinvent ourselves. So what are we doing? Well, first, we're helping a lot with aftercare strategies, business retention and expansion. Look after what's already in your community, how to grow that and move it from business retention to investor development. We're also doing a lot of sessions capacity building. So we've created e-learning, understanding that the world needs to still get trained, particularly our clients in Africa. So we're moving to e-learning. and starting to try and provide more digital solutions. And so hopefully I can share with you, what some other countries are doing around the world. Not everyone is at the same stage in this COVID crisis. So, some people are beginning to come out the other side, and it'll be interesting just to share some of those ideas.
Awesome, thanks. Priscilla, I'm coming to you now. Priscilla Galugli is the marketing coordinator of W&A Engineering. They are a rapidly growing multidisciplinary engineering firm with offices in Georgia and Tennessee. W&A is known for innovative design, efficient engineering, and exceptional service. They're a trusted partner of community leaders and developers driving growth throughout the United States. Priscilla, welcome.
Thank you, Pete. I'm glad to be here. Hello, everyone. I am the marketing coordinator at W&A Engineering, headquartered in Athens, Georgia. I'm also privileged to be the vice chair of the marketing committee at the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. I've been working in the AEC industry for over 15 years, supporting a variety of businesses and industry sectors to develop effective marketing and business development solutions. Over the past 4 months, obviously that landscape has changed drastically. And so today I'm hoping to share some of the best practices that have been working for us to help us stay on track, and share some of the successes that the Athens community has been able to have this year.
Thanks, Priscilla. Greg, you're up now. Greg's a senior consultant with VisionFirst Advisors, and VisionFirst is a team of 7 former economic developers that have worked at every level of economic development. They focus half of their work on all aspects of economic development strategy and the other half on site selection services. The company is 5 years old and has done work in over 30 states and currently represent 5 Fortune 500 companies. Greg, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I was trying to think back over the past 4 months, which I don't know if it seems like 4 years. The time is just crazy. I do want to give a shout out. We lost, right prior to COVID, we lost Melissa Medley, one of our principals. And I know a lot of people on the call know her and remember her and have worked with her. So it was a huge blow to our company. And then COVID hit. And, as we tried to restructure and how we're going to move forward, I know that she's looking down right now, smiling, because I think we were busier than we've ever been before. Our strategy side, our location side has been pretty amazing. So we're very blessed with that. But from a strategy standpoint, we spend so much time with communities, and we're getting calls every day of how do we recover, how do we move forward, what do we do about workforce alignment, what does the future hold, how do I get ready for technology? And then on the flip side, our site location side is growing and growing. So it's been really good for us despite these troubling times right now.
Very good. Well, let's get into some questions. Sarah, you get the first one. So what marketing tools have remained consistent during the COVID-19, and what are some emerging tools and trends that have developed as a result of what's happened in the last 4 months?
That's a really great question. I think that the emerging trend that used to be of video first and digital, that all still remains the same. If you can't have in-person site selection visits, I know some people may be talking about, virtual resources. That's definitely something that, we would recommend communities look into. Having the experience of visiting your community when you may not be able to do that in person. So that translates not only to virtual experiences themselves, but even your content marketing strategy on your social platforms and what you feature on your website. So some of the things that's always been a trend, the digital first, video first mentality, that has stayed over the course of this time. Everyone probably on this call also put up a COVID-19 resources page on their website when this whole thing first started. So your website is still a great outreach and marketing tool. So that as well is still going to be relevant through this time. What's changing with some of those tools is how you utilize them and how you make sure not to do the digital overload, which I know we'll talk about, but thinking of different creative and innovative ways that you can share that information that, isn't just piling up on people's news feeds or reinventing the wheel of information, being shared from multiple sources. There's ways that you can go about that. But I would say certainly the things that have stayed the same are the digital first trend, the telling your story even more genuinely and authentically on those digital platforms, that's going to remain through this time. Absolutely.
Priscilla, take a whack at that question as well, and what you've done there in Athens.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I definitely have to agree with Sarah. Digital first and video whenever it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the tools that have changed really are, print materials are not something you really want to send out these days, just due to the safety, guidelines. And I think that's really key. Is the big thing right now is to make sure that your messaging is consistent with what your goals are and what your community's goals are, and making sure that your strategies are aligned with accordingly. And I would say that some of the things that have stayed the same is, again, that storytelling and being genuine is always really important. And be creative. Corporate generosity, people are going to remember what you did during this time, how you responded to your community, and how you reacted is really going to determine how people view your community after this is over.
Greg, I'm going to jump off into something that Sarah was talking a little bit about, and that's the kind of the technology side. And one of the things I've heard quite a bit about is, again, that era of particularly that first phase site visit is going to be virtual. So, we've joked, or I've joked a lot, that we're going to have virtual site visits for a virtual project that's going to have virtual people, and eventually there'll be virtual workers. But that is, though, a significant question out there is, given that technology, what are some new things that folks should be looking at relative to the marketing of a site or marketing of a building in this
Sure.
new world where people just aren't traveling?
Absolutely. Hey, so as you said, I've been on the other side for most of my career, and I've been on the site selection side for a few years. And I've heard it time and time again, hey, you're being considered whether you know it or not. And you kind of nod, you say yes. I can tell you from the past 2 years on this side that every economic developer should print that, put it in bold, highlight it, underline it, and tape it to their wall to understand like how true that is, how much desktop review we do, and how much we are virtually viewing your community, whether you know it or not. So, there's so many trends out there. When Apple came out with that tagline back in like 2010 that said there's an app for that, there's literally an app for everything out there. Does it mean it's so easy to use? Sometimes no. Are some really easy to use? Absolutely yes. There's trends out there where I did this other day. Somebody was asking me something. I was like, hold on, I'll go take a picture. Instead of just taking a picture, I stood in the location where I was trying to show somebody something, and took a 360 shot, uploaded it real quick, and it took me about 5 minutes, and I can virtually put somebody into my space. And I think that's a really, really good trend for buildings, not only to take them there, but if a company's looking at buildings, we're going to look at multiple buildings. And so you move from, if we come in person, we go to this one, then we drive 20 miles to this one, and then maybe over here 15 miles, and all of a sudden we're up the state this way looking at another building. And something happens where you're like, I can't remember on that first building, were the dock doors like this, or how many dock doors? Well, here, let me take you back there real quick. So there's so many tools in our tool belt that we can do that are pretty cheap, if not free, that we can virtually take somebody, back to a building instead of just relying on a piece of paper or a map or something like that. But there's just so many apps out there for virtual stuff right now, which is great.
Chris, take a hit at that technology conversation as well. I know we had talked earlier that you've have some activities in there as well, and then go ahead and move on to a little bit about what, again, COVID's doing on the foreign direct investment front for us.
Yeah, well, first, I completely agree with what everyone's saying. Some of the things which stay the same, and sometimes we forget about them when we talk about all of these new cool tools. Your website is still the number one thing. Site selectors, they'll be going on your website. So you need to, one, a website which is easy to find, two, a website which says what an investor or a site selector wants to read, not what you want to say. So really think about that, what they want to get from your website. Three, make it easy to find the person they need to speak to. Then we talk about videos. Again, absolutely necessary. I think the main change in that during COVID times is everything has to be more up to date now than ever, because, you know, today's news is out of date next week. We don't know where we're going to be. So having that COVID page is absolutely essential. But beyond that, you know, I have a real belief that investors are going to start asking you different questions moving forward. I think they'll start asking, you know, how did you cope with the pandemic when it first came? That's what foreign investors will want to know. And, you know, some countries have done exceptionally well, some not so well. And I think next, maybe what they're looking for in terms of a site, and you know, Greg will know more than me, but I have a feeling that particularly small to medium-sized businesses, you know, they don't want to go through the hassle of making a building all socially distanced, having PPE equipment, having sanitizers. I think they'll want to go to serviced offices. I think there will be a big trend to a lot of companies taking serviced offices and you know, splitting their workforce, like maybe 3 days in, 2 days off or whatnot. And I know from foreign investors, you know, we can talk about all of this attracting investment, but while we cannot travel, we cannot invest, right? Because as much as virtual is great, I'm not going to buy a building, hire my staff, and set up a new company in a new country if I can't see it. So as much as I hate to say that because it hurts our business, this is the reality. So I really think that now we should be focusing on people who are in the community, looking at the businesses who are there, who know the community and who need to continue to grow. Try to grow, and you know, I keep saying it, move from business retention to investor development. Develop these businesses to be staples in the community, to grow and hire more people. You know, I think it's also important that while you're engaging with foreign companies is right now, you know, you can be a lot more fluid. Usually you have to say, right, I'm going to target Japan. I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to do 10 meetings and I'm going to come back. You're not doing that anymore. So now you can look at any market. You don't have to focus down on one country. So I think EDOs need to really focus on what their niches are in terms of sectors, subsectors, find out why they're strong in this compared to their competitors, and then identify the companies they want to come to their community. So rather than saying, I just want Japanese, Chinese companies, I want these companies which are perfect fit for my community, for the students who are coming out, and for the workforce which is possibly unemployed right now. So, you know, we can go into it further, but those are my initial thoughts on.
Yeah, very good. I go on to a BRE business retention and expansion conversation. Certainly one of the things that was well publicized was the fracture of supply chains. Particularly international supply chains to get product, you know, supplies into a particular manufacturing plant to be able to do that. Have you, and this is kind of open to everybody to kind of hop in, have you seen some examples of communities that have been able to get to those existing businesses, talk to them a little bit about, you know, what, you know, where the supply chain has broke down, and perhaps work with either existing businesses or even those businesses that are perhaps far away to locate a little closer to that main manufacturing plant?
Oh yeah, right here in Athens, we have Terrapin Brewing Company, which partnered with the Athens Area Chamber to find local distributors for their main ingredients. You'd be surprised how far you have to go to get hops and barley and even basic things like blueberries, which our state is known for growing here in Georgia. So finding local farms and distributors that they can purchase from instead of having to go out of state has been one of their current initiatives right now. We're really excited about how that's going to turn out.
Sarah, on in the websites that you guys have been involved with lately, you know, I know that you've talked a little bit about some shop local conversations in addition to you know, workforce recruitment and livability campaigns. Give us some examples of some of those activities.
Sure. So I'll actually take the liberty to share my screen right now, and hopefully this works for everyone all right. What we did early on was we had some of our partners tell us, I have the COVID-19 resource page up on my website, but there's got to be more that I can do to help particularly our small businesses that are just devastated right now. So we internally collaborated and came up with this solution that you hopefully see on your screen. This is from the Southeast region of Alabama. It's an 8-county regional alliance, Grow Southeast. And what we developed was this standalone website to act as a small business resource that actually features small businesses and how you can support them through this time. So it gives you real information. The merchants can actually come on here and update this information themselves. But the EDA, the regional EDA, got behind this initiative, all came together to invest in this platform. We got this up in about 10 days. It's real cost effective, especially if you're coming in and collaborating on this effort. But it's another digital tool to use to add to the marketing toolbox to support particularly your small businesses and merchants during this time. So you can come on here and see if they have gift cards available, their contact information, their order options right now, if they're only doing curbside or doing takeout. And it's a one-stop shop, the directory's all right here. So this is an example of a shop local website, and we've had a lot of chambers in particular partner with their EDOs on this initiative specifically. So this is the shop local website, and I'm happy to answer any questions if someone has anything specifically on this. Something else that we've done, Pete, that you mentioned, the livability campaigns. So some EDOs I know are more focused towards that industrial recruitment side of economic development, but others also adopt, if they don't have a tourism entity in town, they do adopt the livability piece and promoting their community as far as quality of life goes. So one thing that we've done actually for a community here in Alabama, Chambers County, Alabama, they have about 36,000 people in their community. And through this time, we've carried out a campaign titled Chambers Charm. So there's a lot to be said about rural communities right now. People are flocking out of the big metros. Love you, big metros who are on the call, but there's something to be said about those rural communities. We've heard we've been getting calls from people in New York, in Florida, wanting to come to Alabama, find out more about our location. And so we actually developed a campaign around that talks about the differentiators, the key benefits of why Chambers County is a great place to live and what sets them apart from other other counties. And so we did that in the form of a campaign. They have their own website. They have social media editorial calendar and content marketing strategy that distributes that message across channels and platforms. So that's just one example of a livability campaign we've done. That was actually started pre-COVID, which is great to just carry out, through COVID-19. So those are some examples on the livability side, and then how to support some of your local small businesses.
Sarah, we got a question for you that just popped up.
Sure.
What's the software or plugin used for that shop local site? Do you know that?
Yeah, so this, I believe we built on a WordPress platform. I do not know the name specifically of the plugin. That's a question for our senior web programmer. But if they email me, I could put my email in here or send it to that person. I could get in touch with them and let them know. We built this website and turned it around within 10 days. And it's $3,500 to get this all set up from start to finish. So again, if you do collaborate with a chamber or get some other local entities involved to pull in and create a pot of funds to do something like this, and then that also looks good, right? For multiple organizations in a community coming together, banding together to support and provide a resource for their community. So that's how we've seen it be implemented and most successful. But yes, whoever's asking that question, I'd be glad to answer those specifics if you just give me an email.
Yep, super. Hey, Priscilla, I know that you've also been involved in Athens in some of that livability conversation as well. You want to take a little swipe at that?
Pete. Yeah, piggybacking off of what Sarah just said, we are doing something very similar here in the Athens community with our Ready, Set, Go Safely campaign. And I do believe I do not have that page pulled up right now, but we have a very similar shop local website set up that's attached to our chamber website, tied into this community collaboration is so key right now. If there is anything I could stress enough that has really been truly paramount to our success in the campaigns we have launched this year, has been the collaboration between multiple community entities, our chamber, our EDA, and some of our nonprofits like Envision Athens, who is in charge of developing our 10-year economic development strategy. Pulling together our resources and even reaching out to the business community and leveraging sponsorships has really gone a long way for us to partner with a variety of marketing businesses and collect a lot of services that have helped us really take our campaigns to the next level. Giving your small businesses that platform to tell people and communicate how they're open and how people can do business with them. We have received great feedback from the community on how that has helped them continue to stay in business and operate and keep things flowing during this really new time for us all.
Hey, Greg, in the invitation for this webinar that SED sent out, they had a number of questions that were posed that were going to be answered during this webinar, so we better make sure we answer those questions. But quite a few of them were, again, around how communities present themselves digitally, without being overloaded. And oh yeah, by the way, I don't have any money. So good luck with that one.
Yeah, no, we get that all the time. I got that yesterday with a community that said, my marketing budget's been slashed $50,000. I can't do it. And I said, well, the majority of the tools I can teach you about are free. So do you have time or an intern that I can work with, and we can get you there? I do want to step back and really kind of say, when we're looking at communities, we always start we do start typically from a state level or utility level and work our way down to that community or metro. So we spend a lot of time, I think communities really need to focus on the state database or a national database or utility database that can kind of get us down to that property. And we always say, you're being viewed all the time, like online. How do you look? So, but also, how do you look from that state perspective, utility level, region, down to the metro level or micro level that you're in? And there's a big part that I think people don't remember is, how do you look on Google Earth? There's so many people that are developing sites right now and clearing roads, and you go look at a site, and if you're not in a metro where Google Earth typically will fly the interstates a little bit more, so if you're close to that, you may have some new updated aerial. But I can tell you right now, I have a community that we were working with the other day, and they were telling me all this great stuff that they were doing on their site. So before my call, I jumped on, I looked at the street view, and I was like, looks like a bunch of woods to me. And then I looked at some aerial views, and I was like, I don't see anything. And then they showed me all this stuff, and it had been over the past 6 months, and I was like, well, that doesn't reflect. And some of that stuff is easy as building like a Google tour. There's a new beta version that Google Earth on the web that allows you to build tours and input videos, images that have just been done, where you can mark and kind of build a little virtual tour and show what you just cleared. So that is a big aspect that I think a lot of people forget to go look at Google and see what you look like. Because we may not be coming to your website, but I may be going to Google to look at that piece of property that I found on the database. And again, there's Google Earth Tours is a really great resource. It's kind of new. I think it was designed around education to build, let's take a tour of Milan or something like that. And I was watching it one day, and I was like, well, economic developers should be doing this. And again, the cost is, $0. If you can sign up for a Google account, you can upload a picture or take a picture, spend a little time, and you can make a big impact that way.
Yeah,
Does that help?
That's a good point as far as the timing. Example I had was looking at a community not too long ago, and pull up the Google Earth and start looking around, and boy, there's stuff just laying all over the place. There's, the trees are knocked down. Oh yeah, by the way, the flyover was after a hurricane 2 years before.
Yeah, we had a community showcase a piece of property on the river, and they sent the layout of the building, and I was like, well, why does it look so reflective? It was during a flood, and everything was flooded. And I said, well, this is probably not the best photo we could use for this, right? Let's back it out a year or two and use that one. So.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. Yeah. Okay. So, Chris, what have you seen that's been pretty budget friendly on activities that you've seen in the last few months?
Yeah, I agree with Greg. The first thing everyone thinks of when they think of foreign direct investment is, I can't afford that. Instantly, it's the first thing. But, there's a few things I would look at. So initially, having a CRM to know who your investors are, you can grab one of those for free. Like if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, well, you probably are in the wrong profession. Everyone needs to get digital, right? Particularly now we're working at home. You can get it, delete it, whatever. You need to be as some sort of CRM. So you can't start an aftercare strategy without CRM. So get that in place. And secondly, everyone has a website already. So maximizing what you have on your website is important. Having some SEO is important. If you want to go all out, like on our website for $400 a year, we got some live chat so we can engage with people much more regular. Look at your analytics, see where you're going right. What are people spending time on your website? Because you're already doing something right with that. Next is social media. Make sure you're doing social media, have some sort of idea of your plan in doing it. You don't need to do everything, and I think that's, if you listen to one thing I say today, is you're not going to do everything that we all tell you today. But if you can do one or two of these things well, and then just add to it as you go along so you don't have digital overload, it's better than where you will currently be. And I think webinars, these are free, except for the time it takes to put it on. But, you could really get out to a lot of potential investors. And then, it's sometimes worth throwing back when we talk about budget of how much money you save not going to trade shows, because that's probably the biggest marketing budget we all have. And, if you're still getting projects, inquiries without them, do you need to spend this hundreds of thousands every year? Could you spend that money smarter? And there's only one way to do it. And I believe it is, if you take a theory of test and learn. So start testing some of this new social media, this new website, whatever we're talking about today, test it and learn from what you do. You might not do it right first time. You might need to change, if it's an email blast, change the header and you get a better open rate. You might need to change the time of day when you put out your social media, your tweets, your LinkedIn, but just test and learn from it. And the only way to really do it is by looking at analytics. Set yourself goals. We're a tiny company, but every single month we have got digital goals which my marketing team have to send me. Where do our followers in LinkedIn go? Are they going up each month? Secondly, what's the interaction with our posts? Because you don't just want to post something and no one ever interacts with it. So look at your interactions. Look at the impressions on your website. Look at your inquiries. Look at the registrants to webinars. Set yourself some goals, and every month, exponential growth. Just aim to grow by 5%, 2% each month, and then this time next year you'll be in a very different picture.
I'd actually, Pete, like to add one thing to that.
I was going to you, Sarah, because I'm pretty sure you
yes.
are. Yeah.
No, this is also great. Everything that everyone said is fabulous advice. And, it's very that tactical, right? Here are some different strategies. Here are some very tactical things you do. I'd like to raise the point of, even before that, go back to your strategic marketing plan you have as an organization. And I hope you have one, because during times like this is where it's so important to adapt and be flexible. The goals and objectives you had as an organization for marketing and communications in January are not what you are going to be executing probably now at this point in the year. So what we've been really telling our partners is, if one, you don't have a strategic marketing plan, okay, well, let's help you get one and do that. Like, formally lay out those goals and objectives so they're detailed, they're actionable, because that's the only way that you can achieve those. So one, get a plan, and two, adapt and be flexible. We're telling our partners, look at your we're now in July, so we're halfway through the year, but if you haven't yet, look at your goals and objectives you had for your year. Take the big three. You don't have to do, as Chris was mentioning, you don't have to do all of them. And chances are, even on a good year, you won't do all of them because things just happen, right? It's life, it's work. But take the big three and really hone in on those and be intentional about achieving those. You know, the small successes are what keep you chugging along through this time. And you got to be organized while you do it and have a plan, have something to follow to achieve those.
Greg, we had a question that an SEDC member sent to Matthew before this session, and you know, to paraphrase the question, it was, you know, again, since we're not having the face-to-face with the potential either site location consultant or business, the question was really around, oh, by the way, what format we're on right now. It's all going to be on these Zoom things that everybody, you know, I can legitimately say on March 12th, when the world ended, I had never been on a Zoom call. Now a day doesn't go by where you don't have multiples, right? So this is all, you know, even though it's reasonably old technology, I mean, Zoom's been around a while. Mm-hmm. To everybody, it's kind of the new thing. You know, have you seen, you know, frankly, communities that have come to you and said, how can we pitch you? Or, you know, I'd like to set up a Zoom call with you to do this conversation. Just open up the conversation, as well as, hey, we got a building. We'd like to talk to you about that. I mean, there's I guess a sensitivity, almost like I think the worry that I see in this question is some sort of bulk email. You know, it's kind of like a bulk Zoom invitation kind of a thing. But how to customize that and make it attractive for folks to want to be on a Zoom call with that community to talk about their.
Yeah, I got one about an hour ago, an invitation. I honestly haven't opened it up yet, but I saw we're inviting you via Zoom. So, you know, here's my biggest problem. Half the time I'm sitting on Zoom when I'm supposed to be on a Skype call, or I'm in the complete wrong platform and can't find my meeting invite. That is probably my number one challenge. I can't remember which platform I should have open at the time. But look, I have sat in on a couple of virtual site visits. You know, honestly, I don't think they changed that much from being in person. I think Sarah said this early on, like, you've got to tell your story. And I think that's more relevant now than ever. Look, over the past 2 to 3 years, there's been more data collected in the history of data collection as a whole. I have typically gone into communities with some of my partners, and we sit down with, you know, the EDO and maybe some of their elected officials and some of their stakeholders, and I can typically tell them more about the economic status and where they're going and where they've gone in the past 5 years and where they're projected to go, and they have no idea. Like I said, there's so much data, and I can pull all that. What I see a lot of communities doing that I would shy away from is pulling that same data that I've probably already seen, you know, before this call, and just blasting it on the screen and saying, here's our numbers, here's our numbers, here's our numbers. You know, really in those calls, what I'd love to see is where the community tells the narrative behind that. So whether the data is true, or I don't want to say true or false, because it's, you know, the way it's reported, but the way it shows, what can you tell from that data? So there may be something that's negative that I may look at before a site visit, and look, the community should know that up front. They should know those numbers and say, hey, this is a data center project or something. Greg's probably going to ask about this question, or VisionFirst is going to ask about this question. We need to get that response ready. But it really goes back to me is telling that story and telling what makes you unique. And a lot of communities go by the basic data, like, we're a really great place to live. We've got outdoor activities. Our people are so nice. And I'm like, that's great, but my company wants to invest $500 million in your community. I need a little bit more than nice people. I need you to tell me how, you know, how we're going to be partners in this, or how the company and the community are going to be partners. So it really goes back to me to telling that competitive story and what makes your community different. That could be a new incentive that you pass, a new partnership that you do with a community college or university that's just outstanding. And I love examples more than anything. I'd rather you tell me a story about here's a problem and a solution, or here's a new initiative that we started, more than anything. I love that kind of stuff. I think that tells miles above a lot of other communities when they come in and say, you know, great people, we work hard, lower cost of living, you can get anywhere in 5 minutes. Well, I can name, you know, 2,000 other communities that can do that too. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. So they're not wrong in what they're saying. I just wish we would go a few more steps than that. I may have gotten completely off the track of the question, and I get sidetracked easily.
No, that's no, yeah, I mean, a lot of similarities if we're doing a face-to-face as to what we just happen to be in, what, 1D here instead of 3D.
Right.
Yeah, but I've heard a friend say that, you know, in an outreach to a site location consultant about trying to do a Zoom call, and the site location consultant said, if you pull up a 20 slide deck PowerPoint, I'm hanging up. So
that
I think
was 2 weeks ago for me. I had someone do that.
That confirms Greg's. Well, that wasn't me, man.
I didn't hang up. I promise I didn't hang. I sat through the whole thing.
Yeah, but the point is to confirm. I think what Greg's saying is, you know, the benefit of this kind of face-to-face is the person to person talking.
Yeah.
More than, of course, if you have some data that you need to share, yeah, you know, put a slide up and conversate about that. But you know, yeah, well, don't just sit there and play that PowerPoint presentation like it's, you know.
Yeah. Well, Pete, let me add this as well. You know, I worked at the state level and a big regional level, 2 different regional levels, and we always had the money to go on these big trips to Chicago, and we would go to the Paris Air Show. And you know, a lot of communities don't have the access to that. Well, now at Zoom, you can virtually go to Chicago and meet with consultants, or North Carolina or Atlanta. There's so many opportunities. And honestly, from our travel standpoint, I have a lot more opportunity to say, yes, I can attend that. You know, it doesn't take as much time. And, you know, so I'll just throw that out there. You can now play in that market pretty easily.
Yeah, it's you know, turn that challenge into the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
To speak to what Greg and Chris have been saying about your website, you know, every community is so unique. Use your website to tell that story about what makes your community unique. What about your essential businesses are important? Why are your workers, you know, what makes them different? And we all have those special qualifying factors that make us unique and talented. And something that came up on our community call the other day is, you know, we all have a lot of really talented people, but what's going to get us through this time right now is grit. And that's the thing that a lot of us rural communities have, and we need to highlight the grit that we have that's going to pull us through these tough times. And our websites are a great tool to do that. You know, creating video doesn't cost very much. These are cheap, easy ways to refresh your website without having to do a major overhaul. The little things. Last year, we started a project that didn't cost us more than $5,000 to update our business directory. And now that business directory is helping us launch the Ready, Set, Go COVID directory. So, you know, keeping your technology and tools up to date and making refreshes often, those things are going to help you from digging yourself into a hole that's going to be much costly in the future.
Yeah, great point about making sure if there's a lesson learned in the last, well, certainly in March and in April, where, you know, those that invested in a good existing business outreach program and existing business list to be able to immediately get to your existing businesses was important. I've, you know, run into and done some help on some recovery efforts, and that has shown up every time too, is that you know, most economic developers have in their community understanding of who their major employers are. But, you know, what's happened with COVID, what happens when the tornado or the hurricane comes, it's that mom and pop at an end cap on a strip shopping center that you didn't necessarily have. So investing in those lists so that you can get to the folks and get to people, you know, that's definitely a learned thing. And Priscilla, thanks for bringing that up.
Hey, you know, so many people are so scared of technology, or they sit through a webinar like this and it's like, I'm writing all these ideas down. It gets a little overloading, and I get that. But I think this is a lot of time that you're in a prime time from a chamber or economic development organization standpoint, that maybe it's a great time to reach out to some of those younger volunteers in the community that don't know how to get involved. You know, we meet with a lot of boards and a lot of councils, and they tend to be in this age range, for the most part. And this would be a really great way for some organizations to reach out to some of those younger crowds and get them involved and show them what a chamber and economic development organization does, or a business group does.
Yeah,
That's a
great point. I would recommend, if anybody has a question in their heart that they want to pop in, this is the time. We got a few minutes there. We did have one come up about, and I'll shoot this to Sarah and then really kind of go round robin, because I bet everybody, it would be interesting to see how many of these would be similar as well as different. The question is, what top 3 things should your website highlight? Sarah, go.
That's a good one. And I would start out by saying, to me, you organize your website depending on, and we could talk navigation structure or just what's on your homepage, but 3 things that I would have prevalent, and of course it depends on your goals and objectives as an EDO. Number 1, I would say, if you're really into the workforce piece, then obviously have that highlighted prevalently. But we are actually we're doing a couple community websites right now, and the workforce recruitment piece remains to be huge. Do you have the skilled pipeline in your community so that when industries locate, that there's a talent pool nearby within commuting distance? So talking about the skilled workforce that you have, the programs that you have in your communities with the universities and maybe the career tech centers in your community to build those pipelines. And then, of course, the industrial piece, what sites, what buildings do you have? And not just what sites or what buildings do you have. I think this has been already said, but all the information they would need, just enough, right, to make them want to contact you, but enough information that they're not searching for more, or they get frustrated with your website and they X out of it and they go to the next. Some of the creative components as well. Have aerial drone footage of a site or of a building, or have a virtual walkthrough tour of that. Up the ante a little bit, that experience, that user experience on your website. So I would say the industrial piece, featuring that in a creative way, telling your story about the workforce that you have or the workforce that you're building in your community. And then third, this can be applied to a lot of different things, the quality of life piece. Your community, while I know so many of us are focused on, recruiting industry, building the workforce so that industry has the pool to choose from, but when they are not at work, right, it's about the place you're living. So what sets you apart, your community, from others? What quality of life type things, more than just what Greg said, the cute downtown Main Street area with the cute store on the corner. We could name hundreds and thousands of communities that have that their downtowns almost look exactly the same. So it's really a deep dive on the quality of life perspective. What do you have to offer? Are there neat festivals or, things that happen that are just really unique throughout the year? Because it's more than just, right, the workforce and the jobs piece. It's people want to know, well, if I do move to this location, what is there to do beyond the great job that I'll have, the well-rounded experience of that community? And I think that those 3 things should really be highlighted prevalently on an EDO website.
Yep, you're on mute.
I know. I was the one who did that one. Same question, Chris. Which one, the top 3 things on a website?
Well, my first one is, before the website, make it easy to find. Don't hide it away in like a generic, over here it would be in a generic government or ministry account that you can never find. Next, I personally, in contact details, I would have a person, so I don't have to contact an info at, something really simple to do. And I think probably for me would be, because I think buildings are good, but that's quite advanced. But what a staple that everyone should have would be, what are my key sectors or subsectors and why we think they are that? And when I'm in that, have client testimonials. Why did other people choose to come here? And everything else I agree is important, but for me, those would be my 3 things.
Okay. Well, Greg, you were clapping on 2 of the 3. Does that mean you just got one more, or you're just going to go ditto on me?
No, I'm not going to go ditto. Honestly, I think when you look at your top 3 things, it depends on your audience. So if you're a chamber and EDO, you've got your internal audience. Then those, if you're a membership organization, you've got to explain and constantly remind people of why your organization is there, and then how do you get the information about how you're helping those members in the community as a whole. So that's like one section over here, and then I'm going to speak straight more so on the economic development side. It all depends on the sites, the sector that we're looking at. And like Chris said, probably one of the first things I look at is if I'll go in and say, is this a target sector for that community? And if yes, that's a plus. From a quality of life standpoint, I typically go to the news section more than anything. I'll go look at news on what's being done in the community, and that doesn't have to be something that the chamber or EDO had anything to do with, because there are so many partners out there. There could be something going on with the community college that the economic development organization may be familiar with, but they didn't have any hands in. There's so many stories about, from a quality of life, I want to see what the community as a whole is doing to invest in the people. And I think that's more of a quality of life piece that I love to look at. What's being done, it can be anything from, we put in, a biking trail, to we are offering this new, welding class at midnight. I want to see like new innovative ideas, and I look at the news section a lot. I look at the target sectors, incentives, and news a lot.
Very good. Priscilla, take that shot at that one too, or the 3 most important things on a website.
Absolutely. Everything that everyone has suggested so far, of course, is right on point. I couldn't agree more, especially with having a point of contact. There's nothing worse than having to search on a website to find out who to call when you're in a hurry. And as we know, time is money, so we definitely want that to be right in front of your face. The other important things to me, in addition to all the other great things we've mentioned, is having a really strong, comprehensive business directory that's easy to maneuver, having it organized by categories, and highlight the featured businesses that that promote your goals. What are your community goals? And strategize your business directory around those goals to highlight the portions of your community that you're looking to grow. And then a third for me would be social media. Yes, events are so important. What is there to do in your community? Having a strong event page is really important too. But people want to know how you engage in your community. So making sure your social media is easily accessed from your web page and vice versa is so important, because people want to see how you engage in your community, how people are responding to you, and what you're doing. That's a great way to do it.
All right, very good, very good. All right, we got 5 minutes. 5 minutes to go. Real round robin to say final comments. We will go backwards from the introduction. So, Greg, you get the first word this time.
Anything I want to say?
As long as you get it done in about a half minute.
Oh gosh, I wasn't prepared. Oh gosh, panic. Always have an outline of what you're gonna say in your presentations.
A strategic
There you go.
plan.
There you go. That's a good one since you just lived it.
I know, absolutely, panic attack. Look, there's this whole virtual world's crazy. We haven't said it yet, but the whole testing, preparing, you've built an awesome PowerPoint that's interactive or something, and then you have to go to somebody else's computer, or send it to somebody and the fonts are all wrong. I'm a big advocate for testing ahead of time what your virtual is going to look like, and then be prepared for your doorbell to ring, or a dog start to bark, or your internet go out. I had somebody take a power line down right when I was going to start a Zoom call, and they're like, "You're not going to have power for about an hour," and I'm like, hope my cell service keeps up with this. So just test, and have a backup A, B, C, and D.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, Priscilla, your final words.
Sure. I would just say communicate, and be flexible. Be ready to pivot at any moment. Having a good, strong strategic marketing plan that has multiple options, having big, broad goals, and then, being ready to make changes as we go, because as you all know, we don't know what's going to happen one day to the next right now. So that's why communication is so important. Be concise and consistent with how you communicate, with the people you're looking to do business with, and make sure that messaging is consistent across all of your platforms. That's something you can do very cost effectively that will suit you well, much more longer in the future as you grow.
Very good. Chris, final thought.
I think always remember why you're doing it, like what your goals are. Keep referring back to your strategy you have in place, why you are doing this. And don't just be doing it for the sake of it because other people are, because if you're doing it like that, what you do will be rubbish. Right? Do it for yourselves, find out the strengths you have and follow your own path. I think finally, I would say, don't be scared to be creative. Try new things. Yeah, no one's going to laugh at you. Just try something different that you've never tried before. This is the perfect time to try it while we've got a bit of time. People are doing more digital things. So experiment, try and get people to follow you rather than copying what others are doing.
Very good. Sarah.
Okay, I'll keep it short and sweet, you guys. 2 minutes left. The first is just prioritize and organize. Think of those big three. Go back to the marketing plan, your marketing and communications plan, and what is realistically achievable for you and your internal resources at this time. And if you have any budget, think about outsourcing some help as well. And then the second is your brand, something we didn't talk about as much, but your brand is more important than ever right now. And your brand is the intangible qualities that make a community unique and authentic. So, more than ever, people are holding on tight to brands of communities right now because it's serving as a piece of unity for communities that are going through some difficult times. So your brand as an EDO is extremely important right now, and how you tell your story through your various channels and platforms is extremely important. So little plug, if you need help with any of those, Red Sage would love to help you. I'm sure my email's floating around somewhere, but it can be difficult, right? Kind of internally, if you have limited resources in-house. I'm sure everyone on the call here could say the same. So, but we'll all get through this together.
All right, Sarah pulled the plug zone out. All right, good job, folks. Appreciate your presentation. This was fast and furious. Marketing in the post-COVID world. For the attendees, keep looking out for your email, certainly with the upcoming virtual annual conference that'll be held here in August, as well as the second community marketing webinar that will be held in September. As a past chair of SEDC, I'm proud of what you guys are doing. It is remarkable, the resiliency of our business and the good work that is done. Again, appreciate our panelists for being here. Bottom line is keep doing good, everybody. Appreciate it. Love you. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.